What is Rahu? The word Rahu is formed with two letters, Ra, Hu. Ra is the sun and Hu is the dark shadow. Sun is the self, the soul, and Hu is the shadow of your karma. Rahu in your horoscope simply reflects the shadow of your karma that has stopped you from realizing your own self. Rahu, the shadow of ignorance, continues to give birth to desires. After one desire is fulfilled, others arise, and then they form a queue, and the line of desires never ends. And it is these unending desires that interfere between you and your self-realization. The great divine master Neem Karoli Baba of Vrindavan used to say that to experience God, to experience the divine, one has to kill his or her desires. Baba used to say, if you want to see God, kill desires. Desires are in the mind. When you have a desire for something, don't act on it and it will go away. If you desire to drink this cup of tea, don't, and the desire for it will go away. It is said that many Westerners used to come to seek the blessings of Neem Karoli Baba. One of them was Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. So, Rahu basically signifies the karmic desires that block you from realizing your true self, that stops you from experiencing consciousness. Consciousness helps you to self-realize. Ignorance will make you selfish. Enlightenment will make you selfless. Ignorance is the byproduct of Rahu. Enlightenment is the byproduct of Ketu. Rahu signifies the karmic shadow that leads to ignorance, while Ketu signifies the way through which this shadow can be removed, leading to self-realization. That is why Ketu remains a favorite of gurus, because to jump, a little madness is required. A sane person cannot jump, cannot take the risk, he is too much into his head. But a mad person, a crazy person can jump. He has faith, he is more of the heart and less of the head. And only such a man, a Ketuish man, can attain enlightenment. That is how Avatar Meher Baba transformed many madmen into enlightened beings. The madman, if in the hands of an enlightened people, can achieve enlightenment faster than your so-called sane people. In the East, there has been a long-standing tradition. In this century, one man revived it again. His name was Meher Baba. He went all over India seeking and searching for mad people. In all the madhouses, anywhere that he heard there was a madman, he would go. He traveled all over India, his whole life searching for mad people. His disciples asked him, "Why are you wasting your time with mad people when sane people are available to work upon? And they want your time?" Meher Baba said, "You don't understand. To bring a sane person out of his sanity is very difficult. But to bring out a madman is very easy. Because in a way, he is already out, but from the back door. He has tasted something of the outside. We only have to show him the right door and say, please don't go out from the wrong door, go from the right door. Being out is perfectly right, but choose the right door." Avatar Meher Baba really did a miraculous job, and he was the only man after centuries. In the Western astrology, Rahu is called as the North Node. Many Western astrologers have now realized the greater role that Rahu plays in an individual's life. You can always find what North Node is through your internet search, but that would be just the scientific revelation. I want to give you the real thing, and the real thing is that Rahu is nothing but a significator of your desires, your vasanas. The greater the desire, the more powerful is the Rahu. But Rahu doesn't stop here. He makes you obsessed with your desires, so much so that you start acting out in a manner to which the world identifies as self-centeredness, or in simple language, selfishness. Buddha says, craving and desire are the cause of all unhappiness. Rahu is the agent of desires, an agent that compels you to crave for all material things that this world can offer. And the more you crave, the more you are going to remain unsatisfied, because Rahu is never going to let you stop. For Rahu, there is no stopping. The craving continues, and so does the feeling of dissatisfaction. And therefore, Rahu is also related to ghosts, because ghosts are dissatisfied souls. People who have died in dissatisfaction, who continue to crave until their last moment. Such people remain dissatisfied. Even after death, there is no peace to their being. However, although Rahu is an evil shadow of your desires, if there are no desires, then why would you come in this material world at first place? And how would you ever survive on this planet if there are no desires to be fulfilled? Passion is derived from the desires that you have. Without passion, there would be no energy, and in the absence of energy, can anything ever possibly materialize? Materialize is the word that Rahu likes a lot. Rahu wants you to materialize the dreams that he brings to your imagination. Yes, Rahu creates the illusionary world in your mind, which later is materialized through channels such as cinema, a publication, an enterprise, an establishment, a foundation, anything that has evolved from the imagination, fantasy of an individual. So you see, even the evilest Rahu is necessary for this material world. Imagine what would have happened in the absence of Rahu. The whole world would have become a monastery with only Ketu in action. Everywhere you would have either seen great monks, saints, or criminals and psychopaths. Because that is what Ketu can deliver, saints or psychopaths. The presence of Rahu creates a balance that helps this material world to survive. But the problem is that this Rahu is never satisfied. So although he would make you passionate, he would also ensure that you remain unsatisfied, and that is where the whole trouble starts. The do more thing is what comes under Rahu, and in the process of do more, the individual never is able to experience peace of mind. There is no sense of contentment. The individual is running in a race that has no finishing line. The only place where this race ends is the graveyard. Too much is the only sin, says the Divine Master Lao Tzu. This too much is Rahu. Reminds me of a story. There was a young man, and he was a disciple of Lao Tzu. And the king said that I would like your disciple to become a judge, and let him judge a certain case. And the case was such that a poor man had stolen some food from a rich man's house. So both were called for, and Lao Tzu's disciple was sitting in the chair. And the rich man said, the case is very simple. He has stolen food from my house, so he should be punished, he should be arrested. The disciple asked the young man, do you agree? Do you accept your act of stealing? Yes, sir, I have stolen. The rich man said, see, the case is so simple. He has already accepted his crime, so just ask your soldiers to arrest him. And the young disciple said to the soldiers, ordered to his soldiers, arrest this rich man. The rich man was surprised, was shocked. He said, what are you doing? This man has accepted his crime, that he has stolen the food from my house, and you are arresting me? the young disciple of Lao Tzu said, "You are wrong. The mistake is yours, because the whole village is suffering because of flood. There are no crops, there is no food, and you are storing food, a lot of food. You are just so busy in piling up all kind of food crops in your godown. So who is the culprit? It is people like you who have compelled this man to steal. And if this continues, then one day there will be a civil war. So the culprit is not this young man. The culprit is you. Because you have been so insensitive. There is no compassion. You have been just storing. You never cared about these people. So the primary reason is your insensitiveness. And so you should be arrested. And when he passed on this judgment, the king was also present. And the king became afraid, because the king was also a corrupt man. He said, today he has arrested this rich man. Who knows, tomorrow he may put me also in the jail. So after 4 days, this young disciple of Lao Tzu was asked to step down. So you see, this is how this human world is. Because these kind of Rahuish men and women, they try to dominate, they try to sideline these Ketuish people. And this is how corruption, and this is how that corruption finally leads to many miseries. So the king and the rich man both signify Rahu. And this is how, when there is a very strong Rahu in your chart, when the Rahu is associated with certain planets, Venus, Jupiter or Saturn, then definitely you will commit certain mistakes. And then those mistakes will be no more mistakes, because you'll continue to repeat the same mistake again and again and again. And that is how you create your own cycle of miseries. And that is why Rahu, that is the illusion, leads to desires. You desire, you think that if I get a certain thing, if I get a certain woman, if I get a certain man, then I will be happy. But in reality, that never happens. And that is why the master says, desire, and let your desire be fulfilled, and then you will realize that there is only suffering. Think before you desire. There is every possibility that your desire will be fulfilled, and then you will suffer. There are so many real life scenarios. A man desires for a woman. He marries her, and then what happens? After 6 months, they are catching each other's throat. And then finally, divorce. Then there are couples who want children, and they take great efforts. They spend a lot. And then finally what happens? When the child is born, when the child grows up, he becomes the source of misery. He turns out to be arrogant, ruthless, insensitive. What I am saying is that you think that if you attain certain thing, you will be happy. In reality, that never happens. And by chance, if it happens, even then you are not satisfied because a new desire arises. And then you are always standing in the queue of desires. So you see, this is how it is. And that is why Neem Karoli Baba or Bhagwan Raman Maharshi, they have specifically mentioned that try to work on not following your desires. If you desire to have a cup of tea, don't have it, don't act on it, and slowly the desire will fade away. But since we don't have much control on the mind continues to drive us. And the north node of the mind is Rahu. So you see, the more you are driven by the mind, the more you will become miserable. Remember my words. And that is why Buddha says, rule over your mind, else the mind will rule over you. How to rule over your mind? And the answer is also provided by our great saints. Guru Nanak says, Naam Japo, meaning start chanting. Meditating and chanting. And you have to be consistent. Slowly you can overcome your mind. There is no greater miracle than the miracle that meditation brings. And so chanting and meditating every day, twice a day, is necessary to overcome the malefic effects of Rahu. However, Rahuish men and women, they are not happy with this kind of solutions. They want some fancy solutions, some fast track solutions. They just want to pay money and get some. That never happens. No matter you spend how much money, there is no point. Unless and until you start focusing inward. Unless and until you start meditating, unless and until you start chanting. And this message, these kind of people cannot understand. And that is why we have such a huge market where all kind of solutions are provided for a certain amount. When in reality, the real solution needs no money, but love, faith, and devotion. And that is why I always say, walk by faith and not by sight. When you are walking with faith in your heart, and when you have patience, and when you are chanting and meditating every day with love and devotion, nothing wrong can happen in your life. And that is why Sai Baba has always emphasized on two things: Shraddha or Saburi, faith and patience. Sai Baba says, can you give me these two things? Only a courageous man and woman can give me faith and patience, Shraddha or Saburi. But instead of giving these two, people are going and giving 10 kilos of gold and 20 kilos of gold. What is the use? The real thing is your self-growth. The real thing, the real dakshina to the Guru is when you start listening to what he is saying. When you start following to what he is saying. And that is why when you are with the master, don't bring your head in between. Many people do this. They agree and disagree. When you are agreeing and disagreeing, the head is there. Just let the words of the master penetrate into your being. And then those words will bring a change within you. But for that, you have to let those words penetrate into your being. And that is possible only when you don't bring your head in between. When you don't bring your logic in between. When you stop saying that I agree and I disagree. And then the miracle can start happening. And the miracle does happen. That is the way of its happening. When you are sitting and listening not with the head, but with the heart. And the heart is the only place where intelligence dwells. Because God dwells in your heart. God is love, and love is real. Enough for now. Jai Sri Ganesha. Jai Guru.
Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha.